Alright guys, so today we're going to be tying one of my ant patterns. It's really good at tractor ant. I like it a lot in kind of high mountain freestone streams. I use it on Slough Creek a lot in the Lamar in Yellowstone Park, and pretty much any high mountain stream where you have ants coming off, this fly is going to work real good. So the hook we're using is a Dairiki 305. This has been tied in a 14. I usually tie them anywhere from 10 for a big adult, big flying ant, or down to a size 16 for a little ant. So then the thread we're using is uni thread camel, or basically brown, 8/0. And we're going to start the thread right behind the eye. Then we're just going to kind of cover the shank with a layer of brown thread. This kind of helps secure everything. So we're going to work it back up here, all the way up to behind the eye, so you get a nice brown covering on the hook. And then we're going to work it back to the rear tying point. And our body on this ant is going to be just brown. This is 1mm foam, or 2mm foam, I'm sorry. And then for the ant body, we're going to cut off a section that's about 1 inch long, and it should be as wide as twice the width of the foam. So that should be good enough. And don't worry if your edges are kind of rough; it doesn't really make a difference. And then we're going to center this on the hook shank, and then tie it in at the back, at the rear tying point. Then underneath, now we have this tied on, you're going to get your super glue, Zap-A-Gap, or whatever you want. I'm just going to put a tiny little drop right at the rear. And that will secure your foam from sliding around. And then you're going to lift your foam up and work it to a little back from the hook eye, like there's probably good. And then lay that foam down and wrap it down. We're going to work back on the foam a little bit to make a little opening for tying our materials in. So that's how it should look for now. And then our wing on this fly, I like my ants, kind of gives it a flying ant look, and it acts as kind of an attractor, or not attractor, kind of high-vis wing post. Because we're using Montana Fly Company's Widow's Web. This is a really great material. I use it for both the wings on big dry flies and parachute posts. And it comes in an array of colors. We were using smoke. It's like a gray, basically. So then we're going to pull off a fair amount, about the diameter of the neck of your bobbin, and cut that off. We're just going to tie this in. On my flies, I usually tie my materials longer than they need to be so that you have enough room to trim them down. So then there's that. Just tie this down 1 wrap or 2. Sure it's positioned on the top of the hook shank. And then tie it down, leaving that space there. Still nip off the front to the tag end. Wrap down over that tag end. And then our hackle is going to be just brown saddle hackle, like this. And on this fly, I usually use oversized hackle. I think it gives a better, it makes the legs of the ant look better than a real tight dry fly hackle like you would use on a mayfly or whatever. So then just tie that in, and then just start wrapping. I like tight wraps on this one, not real loose. Just filling that gap that you created with your thread earlier. And that's probably good. That was 6 or 8 wraps. And try not to trap that many hackle fibers. Tie down your saddle hackle feather. Nip it off. And just lift up the head portion of the fly. Bring your tying thread underneath. Build up a little bit of a bump so that that foam stands upright. And then whip finish off your fly. Alright, then since obviously this is too long, you're going to cut off most of the foam, leaving a little nub. And then you can round off the front if you want. Give a more ant-like profile. And then doing the same thing on the back. Kind of gives it a nice rounded off look. And then just pull your wing back and cut it right where you cut the back of your fly. Or right where you cut the back end of the ant. Then on all of my ants, I like to, if you have hackle underneath, I like to trim it because I like my ants to ride on the water's surface, not above it. So then just trim that off like a little V under there. As close as you can get it. So it will ride flat in the water. Right in the surface film. And once you've done that, got your head cement. Put a pretty good drop on there, and I actually like to start my head cement the hackle and the head, so it kind of keeps the hackle in there better. And there you have it. That's my flying ant pattern. Not super tough to tie, pretty easy. Only uses 3 materials. Real good solid ant pattern.